say I'd always known that I wanted to do something like this, but it was actually purely accident. I worked in corporate finance for about 15 years and got a little burned out by it. And I'm sorry, was I too loud? Should I talk without the microphone? Oh, okay. So, so I worked in corporate finance for about 15 years and got a little burned out. So I was going to take a leave of absence for about a year or so. And then I found an injured rabbit in my yard, a wild one. Didn't know what to do. I was shocked when a shelter or a veterinarian would not take it in because they don't like to mix wildlife with the domestics. And that's understandable. You don't want disease cross-contamination happening. So that I'm like, well, what the heck do I do with this rabbit? And finally, a veterinarian told me to go to Austin Wildlife Rescue. And I was like, okay, what's that? Right? So I show up with the rabbit and they were incredibly helpful. They were like, oh, yes, we're going to get this rabbit. We're going to try to fix it up and get it back out in the wild. And they kind of explained what wildlife rehabilitation was to me. Had no clue. Brand new. I'm like, so can I volunteer? And they said, sure. So I started off as a volunteer. About 6 months later, they asked if I'd like to work night shift. I was like, sure. After that, they were like, hey, you want to work day shift? Sure. And then they were like, hey, do you want to manage it? And I was like, well, it's been about a year. Sure. So, and then 9 years later, I am still there. So never looked back after that. It has become quite a passion of mine. I've always loved animals, but just being able to be on the forefront of helping the wildlife like this, because I always view them as the underdogs. They're sort of our silent neighbors that you don't think too much about until something bad happens, right? Usually at inconvenient times, you're taking kids to school or you're on your way somewhere and you see an animal in the road, and what do you do? And we are one of the few places that can do something about that because it requires a lot of permits and a lot of licensing with the state and with the feds to be able to take care of these animals legally. And because in the state of Texas, it is actually illegal to possess any wild animal without a rehabber's permit or an educational permit. And so we fill that niche where we can help that wildlife that nobody else can. And so I'm just so proud 9 years later to still be a part of this organization now as the executive director. And I can't imagine doing anything else. I just love it so much. So I want to get into a little bit tonight about, what is it that we do, a little bit of the nitty gritty in that, and then also talk about, if we have time, some of the habitat fragmentation, because you can't talk about wildlife and habitat. It's all interconnected. It all affects each other. So I'm always excited to, talk about a wider or a broader topic on top of just the wildlife too. And, feel free to interrupt me with any questions at any time. I tend to be pretty informal and kind of go with the flow with whatever questions people may have at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. But, we take in, we try not to take in healthy animals. So if there's a healthy animal that's in your yard, we're probably going to try to convince you that that's okay, right? I mean, as Austin continues to have a lot of development and, kind of reduce the habitats, we're just going to have this wildlife a little more front and center in our yards than we may have been used to. But they're typically harmless. Even if they're a predator, they're not there for you. You are not delicious to them at all, usually. And so we want to go ahead and try to leave them where they are. They're going to move on, especially if the environment is not that friendly for them. They're going to be ending up moving on to another territory, and there's no really reason to rush them on. But a lot of animals are going to end up being injured or in the baby season, and I call baby season basically March through October in Texas. It's the never-ending baby season because Texas stays hot for so long, so we're constantly getting babies in. Or sick wildlife. That is what we specialize in. So we take all of that in, orphan babies or injured wildlife, because what we do is so much more than just raising baby animals and then releasing them back to the wild. Our whole goal is to release all of this wildlife back into its natural habitat. We're not a zoo or sanctuary. We do not keep these animals. Our whole focus is on getting them back into a healthy habitat. And so when we take in these babies, that's kind of the fun part, I guess, because it never gets old. 9 years later, I'm like, oh, baby squirrel. I've only seen 2 million of those, and I still love them. So, but with the part that excites me the most is the medical side. We will get animals in that are practically obliterated, and we have an amazing medical team where we will bring those animals back from the brink and get them out to release. We do orthopedic surgery probably on a weekly basis at this point. We get a lot of broken bones. So that's one of our specialties that we end up doing. So it's so much more than just taking care of wildlife. It is deep veterinarian intervention that we're doing as well. If we think an animal can make it, we will go all out for that animal, even if it's a grackle. I know. I like to pick on the grackles because I love the grackles. They are the ugliest, cutest babies that you have ever seen in your life, and very loud. And I just love how obnoxiously cute they are. But and then another big number, right? So we take in about 10,000 wild animals every year. It is a major operation. So right now we have an intake center that currently is off of East MLK. We know how important it is to have an Austin presence because of those 10,000 animals, about 65 to 75% of that is coming in directly from the Austin area. Our main rehabilitation center is several miles down the road in Elgin. So you keep on going down MLK until it turns into 969. And you go down to Elgin, and that's where we have our large rehabilitation center with our surgery suite. It's about 7,400 square feet inside and about 6.5 acres outside where we have all of our outdoor caging. So it's a very step-by-step process on taking care of these animals. So they come in at intake. The animals don't stay at intake. Each day we have a hard stop at 4 p.m. I know people get really upset sometimes. We're like, we really can't stay past 4 p.m. because we have to pack up all of our animals from the day, which during busy season, we're getting 40 to 50 animals in a day during our busy season. So it is no small feat. So we have to pack them all up. And then we have to drive them all out to Elgin every evening because no animal stays overnight over at our intake center because we know that the best ongoing care they can get is actually out at our Elgin facility. So, it's a pretty smooth operation. Our team over at intake, we basically have a Teams chat, and 3 times a day they're letting us know over at Elgin exactly what is coming over and what condition they're in, so that when the team drops them off, we already have the enclosures all set up and the medical plans all done by the time they come over. So, it's very organized chaos, and it works pretty well. And, although, 65 to 75% of the animals are coming in directly from Austin, this is actually a little bit down level. So as of the end of last year, we were taking species in, over 300 species from 40 counties. We had somebody bring a desert cardinal all the way in from Laredo. So we get it in from all over the state. It's amazing. And it's just really a true testament to how amazing people are for the level of effort that they put in to get these animals to us. And we just so appreciate that because, I know a lot of people when we're working there, they're very much animal centric and really into the animals. And I'm always just as excited about the people aspect of it. I'm a very big people person, and I'm always excited to see how humanity just gets reiterated to us every single day for every single person that brings in one of these animals. So I just always think that's the really great side that we get to see on a daily basis. And of course, we see a lot of people face to face when they come in. We're open every single day of the year. And we do not close any day of the year unless there's a bunch of ice. And then we might have to be closed at least for half a day or something. But we're actually open every single day of the year. And we answer over 14,000 phone calls too. So, a lot of panicked phone calls come in about what to do in different situations. And we're always happy to talk people through their wildlife-related questions or different concerns that they have, because for us, despite taking in such a high volume of animals, it is really important to us to understand that specific situation. I think one of the most common misnomers that I hear sometimes, I guess I hear it maybe from Texas Parks and Wildlife every now and then. No offense if we have any Texas Parks and Wildlife folks here. We love you. You give us our permits. But One of the big misnomers is always leaving a fledgling bird where you find it. But there are a lot of fledgling birds that are not supposed to be on the ground. And so it's really important to us from our staffing perspective that we're asking people to send us pictures. You know, a barn swallow should not be on the ground. They do not fledge from the ground. They fledge from the nest. And so that's one of my pet peeves is when people are like, well, leave a fledgling where you find it. I'm like, if it's a certain species, yes, but there are many species where that's not appropriate. And then you have to take weather into consideration too. Right? Like right now, we might tell you, yeah, if you find a baby squirrel, let's wait a few hours and let mama come back and try to get that baby if you can. When we're in the middle of February and 20 degrees, I'm not going to do that. Baby's going to be dead in 3 hours. So I'm probably just going to tell you to bring that baby in. So there are just so many different things that we have to take into consideration. Oh, yes, we have a question already.
Well, if I find, and I asked before, but if I find another carrier that can refill back under the bridge, can I bring that over, or will you be raised by night?
You can bring that over. However, I'm going to suggest you take that to Austin Bat Refuge. So that's one thing. We actually, work with some of the different areas around. So Austin Bat Refuge with Lee and Diane, they're amazing. All they do are bats. We can't do any better than they do. So even if we get a bat in, I'm on the phone with Lee asking him to come over and get that bat because I know that is their specialty and that's what they're going to do. So we try to have people go to them directly, but sometimes we do get bats dropped off to us, and then I'll call Lee and he'll be like, "Don't touch it," and I'll be like, "Okay, come on over and get it." So we love working with them. They're amazing. Yes. Mm-hmm.
They also are ratty.
They can be.
How do we handle ratty animals?
Yeah. Very carefully. Yeah, so the biggest thing is just not to touch them directly. And this goes beyond bats, right? So when people find something like a baby raccoon or what we'll call the rabies vector species, right? It doesn't mean they have it. Most animals do not have it statistically. But you don't want to take that risk. So you don't want to touch, raccoons or foxes or things like that directly, or bats. So we have a really simple solution that we tell people if they're going to bring it to us, just don't touch it with your hands. You can use a broom and a dustpan or a box, and you can literally sweep that animal right into a little crate or sweep it into a box. A lot of people are concerned, I'm going to hurt this animal. I promise you, you're not going to hurt that animal any more than has already happened, and you can gently sweep it in a box. It's going to have its best chance if it can be brought in. The other thing is that within the city of Austin, if you run across a rabies vector species, so like a bat or a raccoon or fox or bobcat, if you're within the city and you dial 311, Austin Animal Protection, they will actually most times pick that up. And we know most of their officers very well, and most of the time they will bring those over to us. So we have a great relationship with Austin Animal Center and their wildlife officers. So there's a multitude of different things that people can do to keep themselves safe and keep the animals safe too. Yes?
I'm curious to know, when you say your busy season, when is that, and how does that directly correlate with like weather or maybe the Austin calendar, or like essentially why is it your busy season?
Yeah, great question. So busy season is basically baby season. So animals have their babies in the spring, so it's on a whole bell curve. Winter, we're pretty much just getting in injured adults of all the different species. Then March hits, and all heck breaks loose. We don't sleep anymore. So in the spring, the first things that start coming through are possums and squirrels. So they get that spring baby season happening. And then as we get into the end of May, we start to see more of those vector species. So a lot of baby foxes, baby raccoons start pouring in. And then end of May, beginning of June, a lot of fawns. So we start taking in the baby deer. And so then, we've got the spring babies, and then we're piling the summer babies up on top of them. July and August is when we're at our biggest capacity at the center, because that's when we kind of have everything all at once, because they're still a little too young to be released. We're starting to do a bunch of releases right now in August, but we've got the summer babies on top of the spring babies. And then because it's warmer in the south, we end up having fall babies, because who wants just one season, right? When we can just, squirrels and possums can have fun 2 times a year. So then we get in the fall squirrels and possums. So, yeah, it's mostly, I'm going to blame possums. I think they're even having summer babies with the possums. Possums just don't stop. They're just going all year long now, from March through October. And then rabbits, of course. Well, we all know about rabbits. They never stop. We get babies in December for rabbits. Christmas every day. Yes. April. Yeah, so usually beginning of April is when we start getting the onslaught of all the baby birds coming in as well. And the baby songbirds, I'll say they're a little bit easier just because they develop so quickly. So they're one of those ones that we probably only have on premise for about a month or so, just because they're such fast developers. With our squirrels and possums, we probably have them for about 3 months. The other thing we have to do too is we end up keeping our baby animals probably a little longer than mom would keep them, just because they're not going to be quite as savvy, right? They're going to start off in incubators, they're going to move to bins, they're going to move to wire cages, they're going to move to large outdoor enclosures. And then because they don't have mom's savviness that's being passed down, the best chance we can give them is size. So with all of our animals, the size really matters when we're releasing them. So we go ahead and we're going to have really big possums that are going to be released, right? Because if they're any smaller, they're going to be a target for almost anything as prey. Not that that isn't a perfectly acceptable thing for the ecosystem, but we want to give them a chance, right? We've done all this effort to go in and make them healthy and get them out into the wild. So we want to have nice, big, robust animals that we are releasing, just so that they're a little bit less of a target for more predators once they go out. And then I'm going to do 2 slides, and then I'm going to take a couple more questions. Do this all night. Be great. So here's some examples of some of the different species. So I always say fur, feathers, scales. We do it all. We have the permits for everything, and that's a big thing. So we have the Texas Parks and Wildlife permits to do all of the mammals, including endangered and threatened species. And then we also have the U.S. Fish and Wildlife federal permits to do all the migratory birds and birds of prey. And then above and beyond that, we also have the federal permits to do bald eagles. So we currently have 2 bald eagles in our care. One we're super excited about. We've had it since December. I say excited, but they're actually the most violent bird I think I've ever interacted with. They're really awful to have in a rehab setting, actually. But he's feisty and feeling better. We've had him since December. He had an exposed bone on his wing that was horribly broken. And he was just a real go-getter. And so we ended up actually doing both bone grafting and skin grafting on him. And he is showing significant signs of improvement right now, which surprised not only us, but also U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So we're really documenting that. And we are still really hoping that he's going to be able to make enough progress to be released, because we have just put months and months and months of work into it, and so has that bird. He's been through a lot, and he's just doing an amazing job. But you'll see we take in tons of turtles, so I'm just going to throw out some numbers. We take in about 300 birds of prey, about 2,000 possums, about 2,000 squirrels, about over 100 fawns, and probably about 2,500 songbirds, probably about another 1,500 doves, and probably about between 500 and 600 raccoons. And rat snake. I love the rat snakes. They are just characters. I tell you, when they bite you, it feels like a saw going through your hand. But at least they're not venomous. It keeps you on your toes. So the most common thing that happens with rat snakes is they end up, you'll see those are 2 fake eggs. So he had a double whammy happen to him. So we had to get out 2 eggs from him. And it's not that bad. You have to just, you get a lot of lubricant and you put it down the snake, and then you milk the eggs up. And it's a delicate process, because you also don't want to explode them from the side. Every now and then that can happen, and then you have to do a surgical repair. And but luckily with this one, they both came out, and he was fine. He was very angry. So, and you have to completely sedate them for this so their muscles don't try to, get the egg back down as you're trying to get the egg back up. And it's not necessarily that people are trying to be cruel when they do this. It's just it's a form of trying to encourage the chickens to lay more eggs when they put that in. So we try to tell people, well, can you nail the egg in place so that the snake cannot swallow it? Because they're too stupid to know the difference between the real egg and the fake egg. You would think they would be able to tell the difference, but clearly they cannot. And I'm going to skip. That's a boring one. We don't need to worry about that. We can. So some of the superheroes that we like to say, both possums actually and skunks are resistant to venom. It's not that they can't get hurt by it after a certain amount of time, but they can take a couple of good bites from a snake and still be okay, and half the time they eat them too. Eat lots of ticks and insects, and then armadillos. Oh, I love armadillos. Oh my gosh. How many people here have seen a little tiny baby armadillo? Oh my God, are they the cutest? They're one of my favorites. So really interesting animals. So they are genetically designed to give birth to 4 identical quadruplets. So whenever we get a phone call about armadillos and they're like, oh, we found 2 or 3 babies, we're always like, look around. There's probably going to be more. And they're these little pink replicas that are kind of soft and leathery. And I could just kiss them all day if I wanted leprosy lips. So don't do that, guys. But they're great. They actually love yellow jackets, and so do skunks. They'll actually dig up yellow jacket nests in the ground and eat them. I'm not a fan of yellow jackets. I have fallen on one of the nests before out at our Elgin facility. It was not great. So I was like, where are the skunks? Let's put them out here and take care of this. Actually, I was too busy crying to say anything. So, and then of course squirrels. Right, wow, that is a very fat squirrel. Probably not the best picture to use for this. We take really good care of our squirrels, guys. Wow. So they will literally plant thousands of trees every year as they are burying their nuts and then forgetting about them. So that's great. It's sort of the passive way to help the environment that our squirrels do. Yeah, we're going to have to check that guy out a little bit later. Probably a diet for him. All right. Yes. Oh gosh, no, I knew nothing. Look at me. No kidding. I knew nothing when I started. No, volunteering is one of the best ways to get started. And so, on our website, we actually have that. So if you go to austinwildliferescue.org and get involved, and that's where you can sign up to volunteer. I will say it's a fairly rigorous process just because it is wildlife. So there's a lot of different protocols in place where it's not going to be like cats and dogs, right? There's a lot of precautions you have to take because with wildlife, you are exposing yourself to a lot of zoonoses or, diseases that can pass from animal to person, like leprosy, right? I mean, don't kiss an armadillo, things like that. So we go over that kind of information with our volunteers to try to keep them safe. And also to, before we invest the time, usually you go through 2 cleaning shifts where you're cleaning crates, sweeping and mopping the facility, and then doing food prep, learning how to take care of, feed baby squirrels, feed baby mammals, feed baby birds. And so, it's kind of a staged process that we do. And I know some people get impatient with that, but it's one of those things where the more you do it, the more you learn. And we even hire people sometimes who, have been an amazing volunteer, and then they, try to apply for a job with us. And usually those are the ones that we give preference to because we know that you already kind of know what the deal is with us. And we have a couple. Yes.
We have outside camps when extreme weather events come. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so luckily at Elgin, we haven't dealt with too many issues over there. I'd say the biggest thing that we've dealt with over there is usually the freezes that happen. Luckily, since that's in the winter, we're only dealing with a small number of adults or animals that we're just having to overwinter from the winter. So if we get some of those fall babies in, they're not going to be old enough necessarily to be released before winter. And so we always watch the weather really carefully. We actually have 2 staff members that live really nearby Elgin. So in an emergency, they're always on call where they may just have to run in and feed those animals real quick for the day before the ice melts, and then we're able to get full staff in there. So we kind of tag team on those days. The staff is really great about, making all efforts to get out there and take care of those animals. But, speaking of extreme weather, one of the things, so it's not really something that has affected us personally, but obviously like with the flooding that happened recently, or with the microburst storm that we got there at the end of May, that's when things get really dicey because, our normal 40 to 50 animals a day, after that microburst that we had at the end of May, we took in 165 animals in just one day. And so we knew that it was going to be a heck of a day. So we set up a big tent out in the parking lot. We actually had our truck go back and forth multiple times during the day to drop off at Elkin during those multiple times. Our vet was on call there to help us because we had a lot of severe injuries. Same with the floods. We actually had a baby fox that came in that was washed out violently out of a storm drain. 2 broken back legs. So one is being splinted. The other was orthopedically and surgically repaired. And so he's still recovering. He had some major damage done to them. So after a major storm event, we know it's going to be nuts, but we're also kind of ready for it. Like we expect something to happen at least every year. And we have the space to be able to set up different triage stations and things like that. Yes.
I'm kind of wondering, in your rescuing of all these animals, if you figured out the dollar, like per animal, how much does it cost per animal when you figure in all the expenses to, say, rescue a squirrel or a possum or a rabbit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's a great, and so it is extremely variable, right? So things like songbirds, things like that, that's, it depends on if you're going to include like electricity, staffing, overhead, that sort of thing. Probably on average, every animal's costing over $200 a piece. But if you're thinking about it, more individually and more hands-on, you think of a songbird is probably going to be about $40 if you think of like all the supplies and bugs, because we actually feed them fresh bugs, that sort of thing. And then something like a deer or a raptor, you're probably talking closer to about between $300 and $500, depending on how long we're having to keep it on premise there. And it's funny, but people tend to donate. So everything that we do is donation based. We are not funded by the city or state or government or anything like that. So we are 100% donation based. So we run campaigns a lot through the year. And then we also have our intake center where people will donate as they're dropping off an animal. Ironically, the animal that tends to have the highest donation, and I don't know why, is the toad. People love their toads. But we get a toad in, and people donate between $400 and $500 for their toad. And I mean, not that they shouldn't, but it's just surprising, and because people do tend to donate more for like a deer or a great horned owl or something like that. They'll usually donate between $250 to $300. But yeah, I just find it hilarious what the toad is the all-time winner.
And then I wondered about the carbon imprint, footprint of all these people that are bringing these animals all the way from, according to your website, I think it's 17 counties and places like Laredo.
Yeah, 40 counties, yeah.
And I figured, I did a little calculation myself, and the carbon imprint was like something like, I don't know, people driving a total of maybe 400,000 miles.
Yeah, and there are, so a lot of times when they're doing that is because they're going to be passing through Austin anyway on vacation or things like that, and they're calling around to find out where our location is. The other thing is having an intake center does significantly cut down on carbon imprint because we have a centralized location where people can go to that's fairly central in the city there. And that way, rather than people trying to meet, like my trying to drive out and meet someone who's also driving out to meet someone. But at the end of the day, what our mission is focused on is the health and well-being of that animal. So being able to be on site and have somebody drop that animal onto us allows us to give that animal its best chance possible. And so that is our mission. Yes.
So when you are talking about the babies a lot here, and you have like the city now, and animals are losing their habitat. They're not always bursting in a tree, or they're finding another place in your house or your attic or something. And like I had a squirrel in our gutter. He decided to found an opening on the end and went and put his nest on. Oh, that's a good shelter. Yeah. I heard him scratching in there, and I was trying to get him to get out of there, but because there was leaf cover on top.
Yeah.
What do you do when you have the animals are moving into places where they're not naturally, like in a tree or in the ground where they're nesting? Yeah. And then it didn't survive actually.
Oh no. Yeah.
And then when we had some work done on our gutter, I said, you might find something in there because they'd come back and repair.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is going to be prevention, right? So on the soffits and things like that, the biggest thing that we can do to help the animals not choose a bad place is the prevention. Yeah, getting the metal wire, flashing, that sort of thing, especially going around the soffits that you may find around the attic or that sort of thing, to be able to really block them from doing that. Of course, what do you do when they are there, right? And so that's where, of course, you can always call pest control. Sometimes ABC will bring us animals. Sometimes they don't. We can't control that. But the other thing that we can do, because again, we're sort of like the holistic advice, right? So you can do something that's going to fix it right away with a pest control. We're always going to, of course, champion the holistic way of going about that. And so if you call us, that's what we're going to tell you. So if you have an animal in the attic or something like that, they're there because it's dark and it's quiet, right? That's what they like. So if you make that environment not dark and not quiet, so if you are shining bright lights in your attic, even at night, or you're playing some, really obnoxious music with a loud radio up there, they're going to get tired of that. And most of the time, they will naturally move their babies. Sometimes it's not always going to be feasible if they're being very destructive. But if you call us, then that is going to be our kind of advice of what we can do. And then sometimes people are like, well, I don't know where they're coming in at, so I don't even know where to plug up after they leave. And so we have some little hints and tips. Sometimes you can take flour or baking soda and you can sprinkle it around a perimeter in an attic if you can get up in the attic easily enough. And that way you can look for the footprints to see where they're coming and going. And that'll give you a hint as to where that hole might be that you can then get repaired. I know if you Google humane wildlife extraction, there are some companies that do specialize more with wildlife removal, where they'll try to have like the one-way escape where they'll trap mom and then they'll go up and grab the babies. So we do not come out to do that sort of thing, but I know that those companies do exist because we do depend on the public to come to us because we are, of course, short on resources, as any nonprofit is, so we need all of our resources on site to take care of those animals as they're coming in.
I didn't know what the school was doing at first, because I didn't know the season.
Right.
So I saw him coming in, out, looking around, and I think he thought he had a great place, or she did. But then, even when I heard the stuffing in there, I didn't know that she was having babies in there or anything, But it was after, because it was the gutter people that didn't completely put the gutters and stones correctly at the end there.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big thing, right? Like, everybody check your gutters. Everybody check around your attics and stuff to try to prevent it.
You can get critter cases to your top vent, and they'll keep them from going in your attic.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with your chimney, right? If anybody's ever had problems with chimney swifts, oh my God. Yeah. Yes.
How many animals do you take a year from the Boston Animal Center because they will not keep wild animals in the shelter?
No, and that's because they don't want to mix with the domestics. So, and like I said, we have a great relationship with them. We take in about 1,000 from them that their officers bring to us.
Okay, so everybody remember this. They take 1,000 animals a year to see Boston, and they don't give you any money.
They don't give us the money. However, you know, I will defend them a little bit. So we don't get the money from them. However, you know, would they also provide a valuable service because those are animals that we cannot go out to get since we have to be on site. So they are using their resources and their staff to go ahead and pick up those animals and be kind enough to bring them to us so that we can care for them. And the other thing is that if they do find severely injured animals overnight when we're closed, they do drop them off over at their emergency vet and they do foot the bill for that. So they do a lot of really good stuff for that. Oh. Yes. Yeah, no, we always appreciate that, and all these donations too. They, you know, they allow us to provide this service for free for those who, you know, cannot afford to do a donation because, you know, we get. I mean, we have had people who, you know, don't have a home, who have actually, you know, found. I remember very clearly a man who was homeless had found a mockingbird. And he walked 2 miles to come and bring that bird to us. And so it's just, you know, from one extreme to the other, right? We serve everyone. And that's one of the things that's so delightful about this job is that it truly is all encompassing for everyone. And some more cute pictures here with the fawns again. So we are open every day of the year, and like I said, with catastrophic weather, right? That's something that we really try to prepare for in advance. So when we know that we're going to be hit hard with terrible weather, we really start planning out like a day or two in advance of what the heck we're going to do, who we need to call in with extra staff, and that sort of thing to try to get through that. And then here are some great examples. So I know again, my favorite, the rat snake. He hates me. So all I had to do was walk up and he saw me and made that wonderful little posture. Oh, and we also have a rattlesnake right now. So there was a rattlesnake that was found extremely dehydrated behind a grocery store in a box full of, I guess, hypodermic meth needles, I think. I don't know. So I don't know what they were doing with the snake, but I hope they're okay. But somebody put the snake in a box, and it's about 3 feet long, and he just, you know, again, was severely dehydrated, and then, of course, he had an injured lip. So we just, we take our most expendable person, and we have them handle the snake. And put ointment on his lip every day. Every day. Yeah, I actually did that right before I came here. I know, and every day it's like, oh, it's such an adrenaline rush. It's so happy to be alive. So, so those are the things that we deal with, and it's actually on my desk, so nobody else touches it. Yes. Oh, well, thank you. Well, we love it, and it just makes everything so worthwhile. It's such a tangible thing. So I say I do it selfishly because it is such a tangible joy because you actually see the reward of your work with every animal that gets released, and quite frankly, every animal that gets brought in. And you know, not to be a downer, but obviously not all animals can survive. And one of the most important things that we can provide, because I get a lot of phone calls from people who are like, hey, I just ran over this squirrel. I know it's dying. Should I just leave it here? And I always implore people to, you know, please go ahead and bring that animal in, because I would so much rather assist in that animal being able to have a peaceful passing than to just be lying out on hot cement or, you know, being attacked by other things. So I think one of the most amazing things about this job is there is never a hopeless moment, even at the end of life, for one of these animals, because there's always something that can be done, even if it's providing pain relief or a peaceful passing to that animal in the end of its life. And so that's just something that's very personally meaningful to myself on that. Yes? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, what was the last part?
What was the outcome? with all of
Oh, yes, a lot of poop. Yes, they. So yeah, we took in. So what she's referring to. So last year, after the Hurricane Beryl hit, there were some facilities that were greatly affected out on the coast, over in Houston and Corpus Christi, and they were just at capacity because they were literally taking in like over 1,000 egrets and herons and Mississippi kites because they had started migrating through that. So we were able to offer some relief from them and take some of their birds here in Austin. And so we didn't, of course it's during our busy season too, but we had a big enclosed patio. And so we just ended up stacking crates and basically making a makeshift egret and Mississippi kite room. And that was fantastic. And the egrets are easy. The herons are easy just because they are, native here. We can just release them. Some went to Hornsby Bend. We work with Hornsby Bend a lot. They have amazing habitat over there, especially for egrets and herons. And then we had some other landowners who wanted herons. I don't know why, they're very loud, but we were like, yes, please take them. And then, but the most interesting one, though, were the Mississippi kites because they migrate and they have to be very specific on their timetable. So when we had raised these babies, we have inexperienced, long migratory birds, and that's not a great setup for them. So I was every day, probably 3 times a day, I was watching on eBird to see when the Mississippi kites would start coming through the Austin area. And so Catherine, who's my operations manager, we were always looking, and then finally we saw, they spotted one up in Pflugerville, and then pretty soon, a few days later, there were like 15. And then finally, like once they got up to about 25, I was like, we gotta go. And so we ran out to the porch, we threw them all in crates or gently placed them into crates. And then we hurried and we drove as fast as we could to where the pins were on eBird to find the flock, or the kettle is actually what it's called for Mississippi kite, and release them with this more experienced group of migratory birds because many of them go all the way as far south as Argentina. So that was why, it was so important for us to be able to get them with an experienced group, and we were just completely neurotic weirdos watching the app of where are the birds? I know my husband was like, please stop. It just, I was like, I have to watch the birds. He was like, why are you on your phone? The birds. So, but yeah, that was probably the most exciting thing really, was finding that kettle of Mississippi kites and being able to get those young ones up there and have them join them. So super exciting. But let's see. Oh, bobcat. That was another amazing one of the year. He had been hit by a car in actually Pflugerville Animal Control. They don't usually bring animals to us, but they did in this case. He had a fractured pelvis, a fractured femur, and a fractured tibia and a fractured elbow. And I mean, it's amazing. The vet literally pieced that cat back together, and he got an amazing release. He was fully functional. We were most worried about the elbow, just because that's dealing with a joint, and she was just able to basically tack the very end of his elbow back on. I know. I think she was just as surprised as we were. She was like, "Oh, it worked," and she was like, "I mean, it worked." So we were so that was amazing, and he was super strong and angry, which is always good. We love it when our wildlife is angry. We know we've done the right job on them, because since our whole thing is to release back into the wild, imprinting is a big no-no, right? We don't want them to like us. So we are only handling these animals when we are feeding or cleaning them. And then, when we're handling them a lot as little babies, they don't know anything. Their eyes were closed, they don't care. And we're all, oh, love you so much. And then as they get older, right, we're feeding them less. So baby mammals, we're feeding them about every 4 hours when they're little babies. Baby songbirds, we're feeding them maybe every 20 minutes. So it is an incredible, arduous task to take care of all these animals. Yes? How do we choose where to rewild? Oh, I love that term. I'm going to use it. I was like, yeah, we're usually like, where do we release them? But that sounds much better. So we actually have a list of landowners, and we're always looking for more, who want more wildlife on their property. And, so these are very generous people. A lot of them just have unused land that, and we ask that it be at least 50 acres with a permanent source of water that does not dry up during the summer. And that's really important just because, again, less savvy animals, not raised by other animals. We want to give them the best success possible so that at least their environment is set up to support them with the water and food sources. So a lot of times I'll get calls. People love squirrels. I'm always having people call that want squirrels released on their property. I'm like, have you met our squirrels? Do you see how much they eat? So we just, but sometimes I'll go out there, they'll be like, well, I want squirrels because I don't have any. But when I go out and look at the property, it's because they don't have a food source, right? It's all cedar trees. They don't have any oak trees for acorns. They don't have any pecan trees. So I can't release those squirrels out there. So I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't do squirrels, but I can do possums. Please take possums. I'll give possum to all of you if you will take a possum for release. So many, they just keep coming. But yeah, great question. But yeah, so it's a list. We have probably about 24 release sites that we work with, and we will drive out, a couple of hours or so. So we'll drive out a ways to go and do that, just so that we can give them the best chance possible. So, if anybody does have land that fits that description, we would love more because we keep getting more and more animals because we also rotate. We don't want to overpopulate. So we are careful about that. If we do a big release on one release site, we will not release there the next year. We'll have to wait a year before we release there again. Let's see, what else do we have? A question. Oh, I forgot to cover that one. Yes. So I lied. I said that we don't go out on the field, but sometimes I do. So I actually have my own personal Texas Parks and Wildlife permit. So sometimes the game warden, if they get into a sticky situation, and we have an amazing game warden who really loves animals in Travis County. And so every now and then we run into a really weird situation where we have 2 bucks that are hooked together. And so on that, they were hooked together and hooked into a soccer net. Soccer nets are the bane of my existence. There are so many animals that get caught in them, usually great horned owls as they're swooping down to get prey, and their wings will get wrapped around in the netting, and then also bucks. So please pick up your soccer nets at night. It's really awful when these animals get tangled up in them. But so Catherine and I, we actually went out. The game warden called and he was like, hey, do you think this is something that you can help with? And so we went out there and we just threw big blankets over them and then knocked them down on the, it's always ugly when we do this. So we just kind of knocked them down on the ground. And then while I was laying on top of one of these poor creatures, Catherine used a knife to cut off the rope of the soccer net that was around them, and then the vet was able to arrive, and she gave them some happy medication, and that just kind of calmed them down a bit, because really with deer, your biggest thing is to not overstress them, because they literally can die from stress, and my laying on top of them is a stressful situation. So she hurried and gave them some great things to make them very high, and we got them separated, and we actually had to use a saw to saw off part of an antler because they were just so wedged together. It doesn't matter, they fall off anyway in February. And this was the aftermath. He is high as a kite right there. And the other guy ran off, and he was so dopey, he just kind of hung around and started eating, and then took off later on. And so those are always fun ones. Those are my personal fun things to go out on sometimes, because you don't get many deer calls where you can actually go out, but they were stationary. They weren't going anywhere because they were hooked to each other and hooked to the net. So we knew they would be there by the time we took the time to drive over there and get them loose, because otherwise, that is a fatal situation for them. Any the Bobcat story? Oh, that's the one that had gotten hit by a car up in Pflugerville, and so he had the broken pelvis, elbow, and leg, and then he was great. So that was a super exciting release. Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
What do you do with invasive species?
With the invasive species, yep, that's a great question. So we're actually not allowed to take in non-natives anymore. So we're not allowed to take those in. So sometimes, like with the monk parakeets or things like that, so we have those here in Austin. I actually have a personal love for them, so I personally take them home and take care of them. And then there is actually someone who works to adopt them out for me.
You used to take in monk parakeets, right?
We used to, and then about 2 years ago, Texas Parks and Wildlife, they were like, you cannot mix the monk parakeets in with the wild birds that you have, and so I just started taking them home. Now I will say every now and then, if we just get a monk parakeet that has like a conch on the head, then we'll probably just keep them in a cage overnight or for a couple nights and then put them back to their colony. But if it's a long-term care, then I will actually take them home. I actually have one right now. His name is Quentin, and he is doing well, and he hates me. So yeah, the green parrots. Well, there's about 5 or 6 different colonies around, so I don't know if they just kind of migrate, but I always get their address so we can put them right back to where they are. But yeah, so we are allowed to take in native wildlife only at this point.
So does that include starlings? You're not allowed to rehabilitate starlings?
Technically, yeah. I mean, sometimes they get into the mix every now and then, because even the game warden has gotten confused sometimes and brought us a few starlings. But if they are released back where a starling flock is. But we get maybe 3 of those a year now, so we hardly get any, because we do have up on our website that we do not accept those. Yes. Yes, you.
What about pests like wild hogs?
We're not allowed to accept, so again, not native wildlife, so we cannot accept those in. Yeah. Now, what I will say is that if you do find, here's my plug, if you do find a baby wild hog, there is someone up in Ennis, Texas, and it's called At Last a Home, and she actually will take wild baby feral hogs, and she spays and neuters them up there, and they live their life out on her pasture. So we will, if we get calls, we will kind of let people know about her and her work that she does over there. And I'm just going to make it through a couple more slides. And so you can see, like, we go through a ton of fresh fruits and vegetables. So when we're feeding our animals, we obviously need a cheap base diet. So a lot of our animals will get dog or cat kibble as their base diet that's going on. On top of that, we will also give them more fresh, regular foods. So things like fresh fruits and vegetables. Here, I mean, who doesn't love a chicken wing? So our possums, right, they are going to eat their raw chicken wings. We feed them eggs. And then we rotate their supplemental foods too. So we actually have like an egg day, a chicken wing day, a bug day that we rotate for all the animals so that they can have that as part of their natural feeding. And then we do also, for our predators, we also do, we would be irresponsible if we did not test their hunting skills. So we do live prey testing with mice and rats that we order for them, because we can't risk releasing a bobcat or a bird of prey like a great horned owl if they cannot hunt. So they do have to practice a little bit on that. However, if you bring us a wild native mouse or rat, we do rehabilitate them. We get that question all the time. We do not feed them out. That's the biggest question. They're like, are you just going to feed this rat out? I'm like, nope, came through the front door. It's fine. If they get delivered through the back door, not so much. So like I said, baby birds, little tiny babies, they will get fed every 20 minutes. Baby hummingbirds. Oh no, they're the cutest. So they're a mess. They are a hot mess. But what I never realized until I was working there is that baby hummingbirds, so you always think about them, the little tongue comes out, right? They're just going to feed the nectar. And no, baby hummingbirds gape. So it's like this little crocodile thing where they just open their mouth real wide. And I love, especially when we have new staff every year, I think they're always so amazed by the baby hummingbirds and how wide they open their mouth. They're like, oh, I didn't know how I was going to feed this thing. I thought I was just going to lick something. I'm like, nope. They're going to just open that mouth open like a little alligator and eat for you. So we have the best time with the hummingbirds. We just love them so much. And, baby squirrels, baby raccoons, so our baby mammals, right, they're being fed 4 to 5 times a day, which means about every 4 hours or so. Again, really intensive work. We actually have day shift and night shift during our busy season. So day shift works from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and night shift works from 2 p.m. to midnight. So it is just almost around the clock care for these babies because they just can't go too long without formula. And then we have a lot of large enclosures. So that's our deer enclosure, which finally we had to expand our deer closure because we're getting so many deer in and we're almost done with it. We're going to be done with it next week where we have actually tripled it in size. So we're really excited about that. That was part of our baby shower fawn raiser that we did earlier in the year, was to be able to purchase the supplies and get all that work done so that we could give them the space that they need. And because it's always a little bit challenging with the deer because we actually have to separate the fawns by county. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with chronic wasting disease, which is a huge concern that they don't want spreading across Texas. And so one of the ways that we can mitigate that is the best practice of keeping the fawns within the county in which they came and also rehabilitating them together. So all Travis County fawns are together, all Hays County fawns are together, and so forth. And then they have to be released back to that same county. And we love Edison. So this is Edison. She is our surrogate great horned owl. There was a rehabilitator who had her for 8 years, who used her as a surrogate, and she retired from rehabilitating, and so she asked if I would take her owl. And we get in so many great horned owls. We probably take in about 40 great horned owls out of the 300 that are birds of prey. And again, the best thing we can do is to not imprint an animal is to have a mama for them. And she is mean, and her babies are so mean to us. So it is great. Like, there is no imprinting happening here. We actually have to have 2 people enter the cage with her. So one person has to hold up a bucket lid like a shield, while the rest of us go and try to check on her babies. And we often have new staff come in with many cuts on their legs, where she'll go over and just kind of karate chop them on the shins. And with her talons, she's missing a portion of one of her wings, so she cannot fly. So she has ramps. And I tell you what, you put these babies in there, we have ramps going everywhere, and she is just going up and down those ramps feeding those babies. As soon as you put a baby in, she's like, "This is mine, get out." So it's wonderful. She does an incredible job, and that's less work for us. We just put a pile of rats out there, and she does all the rest. So it's wonderful. And then, of course, it's all about the release. So, when we go out to release these animals, we do big releases at a time. So we're probably doing about 30 possums, 15 skunks, 15 raccoons, 30 squirrels. That's all one big release that we're typically doing all at once. And so we usually have multiple pickups going, multiple staff, and then we've got them all lined up in their crates, getting ready to get out there. And you can see they're super excited, especially the skunks. They're usually like, that's usually when we get sprayed, is on the release. They're like, "Thank you very much." So that's always great. Actually, we get sprayed too trying to catch them, because when we go outside, so these are animals that have been in outdoor enclosures, we actually have to go into those enclosures and catch them by hand. That's fun. And people are like, "How do you catch the skunks?" And I'm like, "Not very well." We just walk in and we kind of grab the tail. If you hold the tail down, they won't usually spray you. But I know Catherine got sprayed right in the eye, and it's very acidic, and it melted her contacts in her eye. So, watch your eyeballs. Don't do that. It's really awful. But, and then we have, the armadillos, right? They're built like tanks, but you can see there's a big wound there that happened, and you can see it here on the x-ray too, where that's going in. So that guy took several months to heal up and some physical therapy, and he's really angry. We still have him right now, actually. He's in the tub in our main room, and very angry armadillo. He's almost ready to go. It's just hard to find release sites because a lot of people don't want armadillos on their property because they dig a lot. But we finally found a release site that wanted him, so he's much happier now knowing that he's wanted. So he'll be able to get out soon. And then that's our vet, Dr. Matthews, who's amazing. And this armadillo is a different one. It actually had a fractured nose. So she put tubes up the nose in order to stabilize the snout and then sutured them to his head. And he actually recovered. It was amazing. It looked like she did a Frankenstein job with him, but he actually ended up doing really well. And then we have to do splints on really tiny animals. And then this is actually this is what happens with barbed wire. So that is a barbed wire fragment that is in a great horned owl wing. And that's a really common occurrence with these birds getting caught in the barbed wire, which takes a long course of soft tissue healing, because then they start wrapping themselves around the barbed wire and the wing gets torn open and all these different things start to happen. And so just all kinds of animals. Oh, ringtail cat. How many of you guys have seen one of these? Super cool little creatures. Yeah, they look so adorable, and they're really violent. They scream like a little mountain lion, so their sound doesn't quite match what they look like, and it's really disconcerting. These are always a challenging release, so we actually drive all the way out sometimes to Fredericksburg to go and release them into an appropriate habitat. There's actually a property that's out by Enchanted Rock that is perfect for them that we tend to do. But any other? I'll take a pause for a second. Yes, Carol. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we took in, during the microburst, about 164 animals, and then within the course after the floods, after a few days, we took in over 200 animals during that time, many of which were severely injured. So, and I think I mentioned about the fox with the 2 broken legs that is still healing right now. Yeah, the 4th of July one. Mm-hmm. So that was with the fox with the 2 broken legs. And again, just what I think is amazing about both of those weather events, too, is you think about all the people were having to deal with their own damage, and yet they still took the time to bring those animals in during that time. So that's pretty amazing that they took the time to do that. So we so appreciate that. And then we really appreciated, too, the generosity of all the news coverage. I think we made it on every news station that was in Austin, and because they also wanted to help us out and get the word out for that. And the donations really helped a lot because of the extra medical care, the extra food, all of that goes along with all the extra animals that we were having to take care of. Yeah, I'll get to that right at the end. Okay. Yes.
I know you say you're not a sanctuary, but I've been on the board of a sanctuary down in Sabine for something like 20 or 25 years.
Of a wildlife sanctuary?
It's Sarah, Society for Animal Rescue. It's not a wildlife.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we had a baby raccoon, and we sent it to Convalia.
Oh, yeah.
Wildlife place.
Yeah.
But the reason I wanted to talk to you, and we don't necessarily need to take everybody's time, but I would love to talk to you about fundraising, because we have more than 700 animals out there, all kinds of species, and fundraising is just always a problem.
Yeah.
And like you say, we don't get any government funding or anything like that. So I would just love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's also, grants are really slim pickings, for wildlife and stuff like that. Because, there's a lot of conservation grants, but not a lot of stuff for like wildlife rehabilitation. And, really what we have found that works best for us. So we have a full-time philanthropy officer. So that's all she does is our fundraising. And really a lot of it was just starting to, see who was donating, reaching out to them, see who they knew. So it was very grassroots, and then also keeping track of anybody who donates, sending a thank you letter with a database. That's what was really a game changer, I think, for us about 5 years ago, is we really got a really good CRM where we could go ahead then and send campaign emails for anyone that we had contact information for. And it's really our campaign emails that drives the majority of our fundraising. Aside, we have one big in-person event that I'll mention at the end, but otherwise, like we just did our summer campaign that had to do with the floods, and really just sending out those emails is what really brought in with a donate button just to make it easy and having a compelling story of what was going on. And that's what makes the biggest game changer on there. But really just having the email, I think, campaigns, because it's an easy thing. You can have great graphics, like here's the picture, here's what's happening right now. And then having a donate button on there that goes straight to your website to make it easy. You know, the easier make it for those donations, the easier it is to get the donations.
I'll be interested in talking to you about the full-time philanthropy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes. I'm sorry, I could barely, do we ever tag our animals on that? So no, so the only animals that we tag are the deer because we are required to do so by Texas Parks and Wildlife because they want to make sure that we are truly releasing these deer back into the county in which they are found. I wish we had the resources to put like a radio tag where we could actually see what happens. We have a couple of anecdotal things. You know, we did have a coyote without a tail that was released, and so that was a bit controversial because they were like, they need their tails to talk. Spoiler alert, they don't. So they 5 years later, he's still out on the property where he was released. You know, ones that have very physical, specific things. So he was released 5 years ago, and the lady's name, I believe, is Marcy, who we released out on her property. And she will send us a picture every year of him as he's coming back on the property. So, you know, things like that. Or, you know, we had a rock squirrel who had a notorious posture because he had 2 front broken arms. And again, we always see him because he looks like a little bulldog. So we see him on a regular basis. So, you know, we have some anecdotal things, but nothing that we can actually track. That would be quite expensive. And we would also need, you know, permission from Texas Parks and Wildlife to leave something on an animal as well. Yes, Phoebe?
No tags on the birds?
No. No, we are not required to put tags on birds. In fact, they make it very difficult to put tags on birds because that's actually something that would be easy. You're not having to put a hole in them or anything. You just put it on a leg or on a wing. But you actually have to prove that you are doing some sort of research study or something like that before they will allow you. So for whatever reason, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife does not make that an easy thing because I did reach out to them one time because I would love to know, like, is this the same stupid screech owl we keep getting back over and over again, or is it not?
So, the story you told about the birds that needed to be integrated with the flock of experience, you don't have really any way to know that those young birds made it.
We don't. All we can do is try to set them up for the best possibility, and because that would sort of emulate what they would do in the wild, right? If you have these nestlings that have grown up, once it's time to fledge, they're going to follow those mature flocks, and so we try to emulate that as best as we can.
Let's have
Yeah.
1 or 2 more questions.
Okay,
And then
you got it.
did you release those Mississippi kites in 2023?
That was 2024.
Okay, well, there's a group of 7 I heard that released in 2023 because I brought one in.
Oh, well, we release them every year. I was referring to the Hurricane Barrel ones from last year, but we release every year.
So you release them if they come in, like you're nesting right now, Mississippi kites are fledging, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you release the fledged ones, you don't release them with the migrating flocks, you just release them.
No, we do. So we keep them until they're much older and they are ready for flight. So we actually have a 100-foot flight cage where we're actually training them and having them fly back and forth so that they build up that muscle. And then we are actually waiting for the migratory flocks that are coming through September timeframe typically.
So there's some anecdotal information that the one I brought to you, the next year, there were 2, you know, what happens if it gets too warm or dry, the 3rd bird doesn't make it because the 2 older ones take off, but that other one doesn't make it, and I found one that had come down, and they told me that you had a bunch of those in 2023.
Yeah, we get a lot of them every year.
And the next year, there were 5 adult Mississippi kites in my pecan tree.
Oh, wow.
So anecdotally, maybe there's something with the Mississippi kites.
There may be. That would be fantastic. I know. I wish we could track them. I think that would be so interesting, but
That's a super cool bird, by the way.
Yeah.
If you've never seen those.
they're beautiful. They're beautiful. In fact, I think so last year we actually ended up releasing a bunch of Mississippi kites over Hornsby Bend as they were flying over on part of that. And I know we're getting towards the end here. So as Carol mentioned, I do want to put a little bit of a plug. So I talked about campaign emails that we send out, but our largest in-person fundraiser that we did, sort of our flagship fundraiser, is actually going to be on Saturday, October the 18th. And that is our annual brunch. So it's called our Caring for Critters Brunch. And that is like our largest fundraiser of the year to really help with our operational expense. Again, it costs millions to take care of this level of animals. So it costs about $2.5 million just for the base cost for these types of animals on there. So, look for that on our website. We'll be sending an email out next week with ticket details, but there's a live auction, there's an online auction, and super excited about that coming up. And I just want to thank everybody so much for their time. And I know we're out of time, and I just so appreciate this.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.